Before we get started, make sure you hit that subscribe button, then turn that notification button on right now. Vince McMahon is the owner of the biggest and most powerful wrestling promotion in the history of the sport. His cutting-edge techniques and business prowess helped bump his product from near death into the lone standing powerhouse it has become. He took into account what he was doing wrong, saw what the people wanted, and adapted. In this sense, Vince is regarded by many as a genius. However, even the smartest people can make dumb moves, and although Vince has had high success in the wrestling world, his track record outside the ring has been fairly poor. Even companies under the WWE brand that had nothing to do with wrestling failed miserably. Many of these endeavors ended up losing Vince tens to hundreds of millions of dollars. Luckily for him, Vince has always had the funds at his disposal to fool around with the cash without any repercussions. Whether they had any kind of personal effect on him or not, here are Vince's top 10 biggest financial fails. XFL. Let's get the most obvious choice out of the way and put it right here. That's right, the XFL. Vince McMahon's attempt to go into the world of professional football. WWE linked with NBC to create this over $100 million venture that was set to put the NFL to shame. The XFL was fiddling advertised as football with attitude, heavy hitters, sexier cheerleaders. The XFL was supposed to be the most Antarctic league in comparison to the competition. Although early stages of the league were showing extreme potential, XFL's ratings began to plummet at an equally rapid pace. The excitement didn't live up to the hype, and many football fans found XFL to be quite boring. Although signed on for 2 seasons, NBC canceled the made-for-television sport after 1. WWE and NBC both lost roughly $35 million. We'll see if Vince makes the right adjustments for success when he, to our surprise, revives the XFL in 2020. Cape Cod Buccaneers. Football wasn't Vince's only venture into sports outside of professional wrestling. In 1979, before owning WWE, Vince bought the Cape Cod Coliseum in Massachusetts. To bring steady fanfare into the 7,200-seat venture, Vince created the Cape Cod Buccaneer ice hockey team within the Atlantic Coast Hockey League in 1981. Sadly for Vince, this minor league team was forced to fold before their first season could even end. Vince reportedly asked to borrow $15,000 from the Atlantic Coast Hockey League because of the team's, quote, slow cash flow. He was ultimately denied and left the world of hockey. ECW. ECW is easily considered an innovation in the world of wrestling. Although many didn't take too kindly to the brand's in-your-face, bloody, violent, no-rule style of the sport, it came to be during the exact right time. The early 90s had a demeanor for edgier content, and ECW delivered, which ultimately led to WWE's adjustment in creating the Attitude Era. ECW went bankrupt in 2001, and its assets were purchased by Vince McMahon, who in 2006 decided he wanted to relaunch the brand under the WWE model. Despite fans' initial excitement, the move proved to be bogus as the ECW brand was watered down and commercialized. It was basically just a redressed version of Raw and SmackDown. Although some good did come out of the revamped ECW brand, it overall was a poor investment by Vince and remains a forgotten and unassociated part of the true ECW. Evel Knievel jump. Evel Knievel was one of the world's most beloved daredevils. His death-defying stunts caught the eyes of everyone who couldn't wait to see what he would do next. When Knievel stated that he'd love to use his signature motorcycle to jump across the Grand Canyon, Vince McMahon saw the $ potential. Vince contacted Knievel to broadcast his dream jump. Knievel agreed, and Vince linked up with some investors to get the showing in movie theaters. Knievel's jump ended up being denied by the Interior Justice Department, and he opted to jump over the Snake River Canyon instead. Sadly, Knievel could not complete this jump and ended up breaking his nose. Vince also couldn't get the event on as many theater screens as anticipated, so the whole deal ended up being a box office bust. McMahon lost approximately $250,000 after the ordeal. World Bodybuilding Federation. It's no secret that Vince has an obsession with big, strong men. The more outrageously oversized, the higher your chance of getting a main event push, unless you're the Big Show. But before there was a Big Show or a Braun Strowman or Brock Lesnar, Vince unleashed the WBF, World Bodybuilding Federation. The concept of WBF was to bring the storyline elements of sports entertainment to bodybuilding. There was a WBF championship, but instead of competing in an action-packed match for the belt, greased-up strongmen in tights would hold poses. The winner was, I guess, the most jacked-looking competitor? I'm not sure, to be honest. Regis Philbin apparently hosted the very first WBF broadcast on pay-per-view. Needless to say, nobody really wanted to pay WrestleMania prices to see some greasy statues stand there, and the show died out. Diva Search Contest. In 2004, Vince unveiled the WWE Diva Search Contest, in which the company would seek out beautiful women and put them against each other for a WWE contract. Although for the most part, the Diva Search has brought in some of the WWE's biggest female competitors, including the Bella Twins, Layla, Eve Torres, Christy Hemme, Maurice. The idea in its beginning stages was a total waste of money. The contract was worth a whopping $250,000 for a superstar who usually didn't have any in-ring skills whatsoever. This would put Diva Search winners in cheerleading roles, keeping them out of the ring for a wage of a major superstar. They tried rushing one of their winners, Ashley, into the ring, which was not good for anybody involved. Eventually, Vince picked up on all the wasted cash and started giving winners a standard WWE contract, which allowed the winner to actually take the time and develop into an in-ring star. No Holds Barred. This was one of the first films to be produced by Vince McMahon. It was meant to capitalize on the popularity of Hulk Hogan's stardom during the 1980s. Hulk stars as Rip Thomas, a professional wrestling champion who is forced to fight for his life against an evil network executive. Although a writer was originally hired to write a script, Vince and Hogan allegedly rewrote it together in the span of 3 days. Although it grossed $16 million in the box office, apparently the film lost money. Various numbers are thrown around, but Vince once made a joke where he said, "Hogan promised me that if that movie lost money, he was going to return his salary. I guess the check is still in the mail," indicating that the film lost at least $1 million. The film's cheesiness has made it a bit of a cult classic among wrestling fans. The WWE Restaurant in New York. Back when WWE was still known as WWF, the company opened its very own restaurant in the heart of Times Square in New York City. The Attitude Era had brought wrestling popularity to an all-time high, and the WWF New York was built to further expand on that. The venture was pumped with loads of publicity and seemed like it was going to bring attitude to the dining experience. However, after 3 short years, the restaurant closed. The food was allegedly fairly mediocre, and the high rent mixed with speedily declining ratings after a while made Vince cut his losses before it was too late. WWE Casino. Not too far apart from opening the restaurant, Vince invested in opening a WWE-themed casino in Sin City itself, Las Vegas, Nevada. Wrestling was already a source of sports betting, and Vince thought he could capitalize further. Could you imagine WWE-themed slot machine prizes and most likely burlesque shows? Unfortunately, the project ended before it could really begin, shutting the project down not long after releasing a concept video. It's said that the whole project was too much of a headache to handle and may not have brought in as much money as they once thought. Vince resold the casino property for around $11.2 million, more than likely much less than what he purchased it for. Linda McMahon Senate races. When Linda ran for Senate of Connecticut, she, Vince, and the entire WWE were put under a microscope, threatening to pick up on any dirt that could be found. Linda ended up spending $50 million on the campaign that she not only lost, but drew in an outstanding mass of criticism as many believed that she was trying to buy votes. Linda lost so much money that Vince poked fun at the situation on Monday Night Raw. The story had Vince in a coma, but awakened when the doctor told him about Linda's spending on the campaign. Linda's efforts weren't completely wasted, as she did end up working for the government. She is currently the administrator of the Small Business Administration for the Trump administration. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure you subscribe.